Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Glendale Housing Authority meeting for April 1st, 2025, being called to order at 2:07 p.m. May we have roll call, please?
Authority Member Arginian.
Here.
Asadurian.
Here.
Brotman.
Here.
Garpetian.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Barazian.
Here.
Cherksakian.
Here. May we have your report, please?
The agenda for the April 1st, 2025 regular meeting of the Glendale Housing Authority was posted on March 20th, 2025 on bulletin board outside City Hall.
All right, thank you. And what is next?
Next would be approval of minutes of the Housing Authority meeting of March 18, 2025.
And do we have a
Move the
motion to
minutes?
approve? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll move the minutes.
Approve.
Okay.
Approved.
All right, moved by Member Brotman, seconded by Member Barazian. Let's have quick roll call on that.
Authority Member Arginian.
Yes.
Asadurian.
Yes.
Brotman.
Yes.
Garpetian.
Yes.
Najarian.
Yes.
Barazian.
Yes.
Cherksakian.
Yes, the minutes are approved. Next is oral communication. Do we have any cards or any callers?
Cherksakian, we do not have any callers or cards at this time.
Great, thank you. And let's move on to the business agenda. Can you please read item 6A into the record?
Community development regarding public hearing and approval of Section 8 Public Housing Authority 5-year plan, fiscal year 2025-2026 annual plan, and 2025 administrative plan. One resolution adopting and authorizing the submission of the Public Housing Authority 5-year plan, fiscal year 2025-2026 annual plan, and 2025 administrative plan to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
All right. Who do we turn to, Mr. Galanian?
Yes, good afternoon, Chair Kasakian, members of Housing Authority. While staff are on their way to make the presentation, I'll just provide a brief summary. Section 8 Public Housing Authority, or PHA's 5-year and the annual plans are essentially resource for interested parties for essential information about their policies, rules, and requirements for its operations, programs, and services. They also inform stakeholders about the PHA's mission, goals, and objectives for addressing the housing needs of low-income families. The HUD mandates a 45-day public comment period and the public hearing before the submission deadline of this 5-year annual and administrative plans. With that, I'll turn it to Edgar Akopian for the full presentation and your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Galanian. Is the mic on?
Is it a public hearing?
Yes, it is.
So we'll open the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Glendale. Good afternoon, Chair Kasakian, members of the Housing Authority. Today, we're here to conduct the public hearing for the approval of the Section 8 5-year plan, annual plan, and administrative plan. These plans outline the strategic direction, operational policies, regulatory updates necessary for the administration of the Section 8 program. The annual plan. The annual plan is required to be submitted to HUD annually. It contains key information about how the Section 8 program is administered, such as policy updates and a progress report on the goals set forth in the 5-year plan. This year's annual plan highlights the following information: financial resources necessary to sustain a Section 8 program, significant policy changes, and a progress report on the mission and goals established in the 5-year plan. Financial resources. The Glendale Housing Authority administers a total of 2,667 Housing Choice vouchers. This includes both Glendale-issued vouchers and portable vouchers from other agencies. The Housing Authority is authorized to administer 1,652 Glendale vouchers, 202 EHV vouchers, and 14 mainstream vouchers. However, that number of Glendale vouchers, the number of Glendale vouchers issued is lower than the maximum allocation. That number is currently at 1481. This is because the total number of vouchers we actually lease is directly impacted by funding levels set by HUD, which is significantly lower than the actual budget required to lease up to our full allocation. Budget shortfall. In December, the Housing Authority, like many others across the country, experienced a budgetary shortfall and temporarily paused new leasing activities from the waiting list. Recently, a continuing resolution was signed into law at the federal level, providing funding for most HUD programs at 2024 levels. While this may seem like stable news, it actually contributes to the shortfall as the funding does not keep pace with rapidly rising subsidy costs. To address this issue, we have been in contact with HUD's shortfall team and are scheduled to meet with them on April 30th to explore potential solutions. Small area fair market rents. As of January 1, 2025, per HUD requirements, Glendale implemented small area fair market rents. This means that payment standards are now set by zip code rather than being based on a county-wide rate. The goal of the new policy is to give Section 8 participants greater access to housing in higher opportunity areas by aligning rental assistance more closely with local market conditions. Policy amendments driven by HOTMA. The Housing Opportunity Through Modernization Act of 2016, most commonly known as HOTMA, introduced various regulatory changes to streamline program administration. Although the final rule to implement sections 102 and 104 of HOTMA was published in 2023, the implementation has been delayed until HUD's new Housing Information Portal is operational and can process HOTMA-compliant transactions. Certain HOTMA policies that are not dependent on HUD's new system will be implemented earlier. To prepare for full compliance, the Housing Authority has updated its administrative plan to include policies both pre- and post-HOTMA implementation. All major changes are detailed in the annual plan, but key highlights include the following: denial of program admission or termination for families who own a home. New asset limits. Families with assets exceeding HUD's limit will be ineligible for admission or continued assistance. For 2025, that limit is set at $103,200. This amount will be adjusted annually by HUD based on inflation. Updated local preferences. A preference has been added for the new Foster Youth to Independence program, while existing preferences remain as they have been applied historically. Applying payment standard increases. Higher payment standards may be applied earlier than before the family's rent increases, or may be applied earlier than before if the family's rent increases or an interim income examination is processed. Annual income calculations. Annual income will now be based on the previous 12 months of the annual reexamination, while initial and interim reexaminations will use anticipated income based on current circumstances. Fewer interim reexaminations. The Housing Authority will conduct fewer interim income reexaminations as a result of the HOTMA mandated 10% adjusted income change threshold. Asset inclusions and exclusions. Non-essential personal property such as bank accounts, financial investments, luxury items exceeding HUD's annual threshold will be included in net family assets. That amount is set at $51,600 for 2025 and will be updated annually based on inflation. Essential personal property for daily living, work, education, or health, such as vehicles for commuting, will be excluded from net family assets. Income from assets. Actual income from assets will be counted, while imputed income will only apply if actual income cannot be determined and the net assets exceeds HUD's annual threshold. Health and medical care expense deduction. The deduction has increased from 3% to 10% of annual income, with hardship exemptions available to assist affected households. Childcare expense hardship exemption. Families losing the childcare deduction may request a hardship exemption if childcare remains necessary and they cannot afford the rent. Inspection policy updates. Effective October 1, 2025, the Housing Authority will adopt the Inspire inspection protocol, replacing HQS. Inspire prioritizes health, safety, and functional deficiencies over aesthetic concerns. Key Inspire policy changes include enhanced smoke detector requirements, GFCI protected outlet requirements, and additional 24-hour correction requirements for smoke and carbon monoxide detector deficiencies, damaged electrical outlets or switches, and mold-like substances that are extremely high levels. Foster Youth to Independence policy update. The Housing Authority is preparing to administer 5 foster youth to independence vouchers in partnership with the Los Angeles County Department of Children and Family Services. This initiative will offer critical housing assistance to eligible foster youth transitioning to independent living. To support this effort, the Housing Authority has updated its FYI program policies and established a limited local preference. The Housing Authority will formalize an MOU with DCFS and open its waiting list exclusively to FYI participants before accepting referrals. Progress report and highlights. The Housing Authority has made significant progress toward achieving objectives set forth in the 5-year plan. Notable accomplishments include maintaining a high-performance status under HUD's Section 8 Management Assessment Program, commonly known as CMAP, for 22 consecutive years, expanding access to high-opportunity areas through SAFMR implementation, housing homeless families, and marketing the program by providing lease-up bonuses to owners, and updating the administrative policies to align with HUD's modernization efforts and to enhance operational efficiency. Waiting list update. In 2024, a total of 385 families were pulled from the Glendale Section 8 waiting list and processed for eligibility. Approximately 1,000 applicants remain on the list. Due to a budgetary constraints, the lease-ups are currently paused. Applicants will be served as vouchers become available through attrition or additional HUD funding. The 5-year plan. The 5-year plan must be submitted to HUD every 5 fiscal years. It outlines the PHA's mission and establishes goals and objectives to support housing for low-income families. The proposed plan includes 14 goals aimed at achieving that mission. The goals focus on maximizing leasing opportunities, providing adequate housing subsidies, maintaining high-quality units, ensuring regulatory compliance, strengthening landlord partnerships, and expanding affordable housing. Resident Advisory Board input. To ensure our plans reflect community needs, we met with the Resident Advisory Board in February. Board members expressed interest in budget allocations and funding sustainability, small area fair market rents, and payment standards, along with other general Section 8 questions about portability, security deposits, and affordable housing developments. With that, I conclude my report and respectfully request the Housing Authority's approval of the 5-year plan, annual plan, and administrative plan.
Thank you. I know there was a lot of information. I know the report itself was pretty voluminous. So I'll ask my colleagues who would like to ask questions. Anyone first?
I have a
Member
question.
Najarian, please.
Thanks for the report. Back to your HOTMA amendments, something that I always hear and have personally seen are the luxury vehicles that Section 8 recipients have. You're saying that those vehicles now are completely off the table in terms of determining eligibility and assets?
Authority member Najarian, vehicles were never counted as part of income, even under the old policies. What sometimes happens is fraud, like in any other program. We do have a fraud prevention program. Usually if someone has a luxury car, that means they have unreported income. And so when that happens, fraud cases are opened, follow-up is done, and those people are terminated from the program.
Can you talk about the fraud investigations or the fraud, if it's a department or it's a desk that you have, and how do you pursue these alleged fraudulent
Sure.
recipients?
So typically, either a fraud case will be opened by a staff member that notices something. Maybe they see that luxury car. Maybe they see bank transactions.
And we're not talking Acuras, by the way, right? We're talking about very highest of the highest end that I personally have seen. I don't want to drop any brands, but, they're British, they're high-end German, Italian in some regards. So, go ahead, I interrupted you.
I would just make a comment that I don't think that's very common. Maybe that a case like that has happened, but I would say that would be extremely uncommon for a lot of recipients to be doing that from my experience. But if such a thing happened, we would open up a fraud case and our fraud investigator would pursue. We would do surveillance and use other investigative means to uncover any potential fraud and terminate that applicant from the program. We do have a fraud prevention hotline so that if a neighbor notices that, they can call that number, they can report that, and similarly, an investigation will take place, and the person could stay anonymous, and usually people do when they report fraud.
That includes other family members living in units, or less than the required amount of family members living.
Correct. If there's fraud on all sorts of levels, the luxury car you mentioned, additional family members that are not supposed to be living in the assisted unit, unreported jobs, businesses, things of that nature.
Thank you.
Member Asatryan, Mayor Asatryan, please.
So I think as a follow-up to that, I had raised this in a briefing I had requested from the housing, I think it was like a year ago. One of the comments back from staff I received was that a lot of these luxury cars are actually salvaged vehicles. And so that was part of I guess every time they've gone out or anytime they have gone out and nothing has come out of it, it's because while they may look like luxury cars, they're actually salvaged vehicles. But I think this reminds me of the gentleman that had come to our meeting, I think about a month ago, noting that his affordable housing unit had the rent was increased, and he was unable to pay. And I think Councilmember Kasakian at the time had posed the question of, well, how do we go through the process of, identifying if someone can actually meet these? Because I brought up the fact that somebody that's on SSI, for example, and even if they're an elderly couple, there's not enough money that they receive through SSI to be able to cover these affordable housing units. So, what are the measuring sticks you have to, if somebody does have supplemental income, that maybe their kids are helping them $500 a month to help make ends meet? Are these things calculated within or?
Mayor Asatarian, yes. So affordable housing projects work differently than Section 8. With Section 8, they pay a much lower portion, and the calculation is based on how much income they receive. So there's a formula that we use. Part of the formula is our payment standard. That's the maximum, that determines the maximum amount we can assist with. And then we take their income, and based on that calculation, we try to get them to pay anywhere from 30 to 40% of their income.
Okay. So, say someone does have or gets assistance from, say, their kids or a family member and so forth, are they able to add that into the application as like continuous income that they'll be getting?
Yes, that's something that happens in the program. It's another form of income. We call it family support.
Member Ajinian?
Yes, on slide 6, where it says payment standards not set by zip code. I don't know if this is a new metered system, but my concern is, would this somehow expedite the qualification for applicants?
So I think you're referring to the small area fair market rents. With that, simply what happened was we went from using one general standard for the entire city to localizing it by zip code. And so HUD's idea was to give people opportunities or better opportunities to move to higher income neighborhoods, better neighborhoods. And so it's not really connected to the application process. So a person qualifies through the application process, they receive a voucher, and then they could use that voucher to go anywhere in the city. It just so happens that different zip codes now have different rates. So a little bit better area would have a little bit higher payment standard.
Member Prazian and then Member Brotman.
Okay. So my question is on Section 8 waiting list. So after eligibility process, 385 families were taken out, right? So all of them meet the eligibility standards, and all of them at least, yeah.
30 member President, so 385 people were pulled from the list. Out of that number, a smaller portion were leased up. It could be that when we pull someone, maybe they're no longer interested. It could be that they're deceased, or it could be they're over income. So that population would not be leased. Only the people who qualify for the program, who are still interested in the program, would then go on to receive assistance.
Okay, thank you.
Member
Yeah,
Brotman.
a couple things. First, I'll just go back to this fraud question because not something I've thought a lot about. But you said it's very rare. So are you able to tell us, over the last couple of years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever, how many investigations have we conducted, and have we made any terminations of eligibility?
We have. I don't have the exact number, but we have a list of ongoing cases. We have an investigator that's working those cases.
I mean, ballpark, do you have any?
I don't have numbers.
You don't have, I'm just curious, like how much does this actually come up? You said it's very rare, but, you know, so I'm
The-
trying to gauge that.
Authority Member Brotman, the very high-end luxury car case is very rare, but fraud does happen. It's reported. We have active cases going, and so those things are all happening. It's just that one scenario I was referring to where someone may, I don't know, drive a high-end Bentley of some sorts, or maybe a high-end Mercedes or BMW. Something like that may be very rare, where, you know, but
Okay,
cases
well,
do happen.
when you're able to, I think it would be useful to tell us, just so we have a sense, like, how would we characterize the situation? Is there, you know, rampant fraud? Is there very occasional fraud? Do we have the resources to conduct these investigations? Do we find when we conduct them that they're usually circumstances that, you know, explain what we might have perceived as fraud and it's not?
Yeah, and not all cases are terminated. Sometimes we do have cases where we investigate and we see that, as Mayor Asatarian mentioned, maybe you know, it's explained. Maybe it's a salvaged vehicle. It's reported and case closed. But maybe there is something to it. And then on those cases, like I said, we conduct an investigation. If there's evidence, if we have the evidence, then we move to terminate.
Okay, well, maybe you can get back to us with more. I actually, you know, a bigger issue in my mind is, where is this program headed, given what we're hearing about staff cuts at HUD, potential loss of EHV funds? So I worry about this. I mean, we're sitting here, we're having this conversation as if it's any other year, but it's not any other year. I know there's been an announcement of a 50% cut plan for HUD staff, 4,000 positions, and one of the areas it's targeted is the office, the housing office, or whatever it's called, that oversees Section 8. So while the Section 8 funding may not be pulled, there may not be the people there to process the payments, or who knows what, right? So I guess I'm really interested in hearing, either now or some other time, you know, what kind of preparations are we making for a disruption in the flow of funding? How, you know, how in advance, like, how much, you know, lead time do we have? I don't know how we draw the money down. I don't know how any of that process works. So, you know, what would happen if suddenly thousands of people are given the pink slips and nobody's answering the phone when we call and the systems aren't working? And are we thinking about how we're going to respond to something like that? Because it could be devastating.
Authority Member Brotman, so the good news is that the most recent continuing resolution that was signed kept things pretty much even keel for the Section 8 program.
Till September 30th.
Till September 30th.
That's it, yeah.
But there haven't been indications that that they're thinking about making major significant cuts that would affect the Section 8 program. Even if they cut HUD staffing, that shouldn't really affect us too much. As long as they don't cut our HAP, our assistance, our subsidies, and our administrative fees, we should be fine, because the program is run by us.
I don't want to get into it now. I just kind of want to set it out there and something that you can tell us, because I don't know how do those payments come in? Are we given lump sum and then we manage it? Do we have a year's worth of funding on, you know, I don't know how that works. So it could be something as simple as the systems are kind of not working. We're not able to get the reimbursements if we do it through a reimbursement approach or whatever. So at the right time, I think I would like to know you're thinking about it, and I'd like to know that we have a little bit of a sense of what are some of the scenarios that we might be facing. And I see Mr. Zovak on the edge of his seat.
Good afternoon, Housing Authority. I was on the edge of my seat for a couple of the questions there, but I tried to stay back a little bit. In terms of the housing assistance payments, we get reimbursed on the Section 8 side for our monthly allocations that we give out to landlords on behalf of tenants. What we do is we have a very large admin reserve that we've been able to accumulate over time that HUD can't touch, We can't use it for anything other than admin, Section 8 admin purposes, but HUD can't touch that. So that's about $8 million. So that's, every time we hear about a government shutdown looming, we always know that we have $8 million to be able to front housing assistance payments. And in that time, 3 months' time worth of payments we can make. And at that time, if the government's still shut down, we're in bigger trouble than just the Section 8 program. So we don't have that concern, per se, on that side. We are waiting to hear from HUD on numerous things that they're doing. The biggest impact, as Edgar had mentioned, is probably going to be non-Section 8 programs, CDBG, home, things like that. For whatever reasons, and you can speculate what those reasons are, maybe because there are a lot of real estate people involved in the current administration. The Section 8 program has been kept in place and so far appears to be holding at the existing levels. We'll see what that means, though, for the new fiscal year. And the HV program is a different program. It's a special purpose voucher program, and it was a program that HUD created but was always intended to sunset. Yeah. And HUD never had any information as to how they intended to address those applicants that might still be in the program up in 2035. So they've just been accelerated now, and we're still waiting for HUD to give us guidance on how they intend to handle that.
Okay, well, give us as early as possible a heads up if
As
you
soon as
see
we-
anything happening that we should be worried about.
All right. One thing that has happened with the staff layoffs is that information is very slow to get out. So,
Member Garpetian?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Zolak, I have one quick question for you. The $8 million that we accumulated, how did we save $8 million? My understanding is every dollar that comes in, we distribute, or it goes towards administration. How did that work?
so we get two pots of money from HUD on a monthly basis. Money to pay for rental subsidies on behalf of tenants to landlords, and then money for admin staffs costs that we incur in administering this program from HUD. And so we've been able to, over the years, not so much in the last 3 or 4 years, but
Right.
previous years, we've been able to administer that program cheaper than what HUD has been paying us. And with those savings, we've been able to stick aside and accumulate.
Good. So, and a follow-up question on this report that we have, the administrative cost is about $3.9 million. So they paid us about, I don't know, $4 million during the last several years, and we saved some of it, $1 million or so every year, or 500,000.
No, we've been accumulating this money over a long period of time.
Okay,
But so
okay.
it's not $1 million per year that we're saving, no.
Okay. And I have a couple of questions for, I'm sorry, the gentleman sitting on.
Edgar.
Yes, I knew that. I was just testing it. So, how do we compare? How do we rank compared to other cities as far as the number of vouchers per capita, like with Burbank, Pasadena, or LA is really wide, or it's really large, or I don't know, Santa Clarita, which is the same size of a city.
We are bigger than Pasadena. We're bigger than Burbank. Let's say Santa Clarita is a part of actually the county's program. And then we're smaller than LA City and the areas covered by LA County, which is LA CDA.
Right, the number of vouchers that we have per capita compared to like Pasadena, are we in par, or do we have more vouchers? Do we have less vouchers?
We have less total vouchers, but per capita, I don't have a number like that. But when I say smaller, that I mean we have less vouchers or more vouchers. So we have more vouchers than Pasadena, more vouchers than Burbank, but less than LA, because LA is much bigger, and less than the county.
And which portion of this 2,883s, I know we have 1,592 vouchers, but which portion of this is the ones that's transferred from other cities? Because I know if you get a voucher in LA, you can live there for a year, then you can transfer that voucher, and we service it we charge them for servicing the voucher. Am I correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
They pay for those vouchers, and currently we have 970 vouchers from outside, which are not Glendale vouchers. They're portability vouchers from other agencies.
So it's Port HAP, is that what it is?
Or HAP is Housing
okay.
Assistance Payments, yes.
Okay.
That's the money we get from those housing authorities.
Got it. And going back to the fraud cases, let's say you found a case, how does it work? That do you take them to court? Is it like a city meets with them? And how do you process the fraud case? And
So-
what happens to them? Let's say they received this voucher for a year, and you found out they have a luxury car or they have a job or what have you that it wasn't reported. Do you go back a year? Do you go back? The penalties or canceling the voucher, or there are financial penalties as well?
So the way it works, first, how someone is terminated. The way it works is a fraud case is opened by some sort of tip, either internally or externally, let's say, and then an investigation happens. Investigation can span over a number of months. And then once we have the evidence, then we propose termination on the person who's violated the program. And then after that, they would have a chance to appeal it. They can request an informal hearing. And then if they request an informal hearing, we will have an outside person come and sort of be a judge, per se. And after the informal hearing, if our case is upheld, then the person would be off the program. And if they, for example, if someone had unreported income, we would ask for restitution for not reporting that income. How far would we go back? As far as we have evidence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Right. Any other questions? Okay, I'll ask a couple of questions myself. So, thank you for this report and for this information. Obviously, we're facing some uncertainty. How, in terms of the transfers that we have, because you look at what we're allocated, which is 1,400 and some change, and then our overall number, which is over 2,000. You see in the graph, in the report, in the charts, a significant number, which are, I'm assuming, folks who received the vouchers in another jurisdiction and then have transferred it over. Are we seeing an increase of that trend, a decrease? Are we able to even accept any more of these transfers, given the financial outlook that you've presented?
Chair Kasakian, the number of vouchers porting into Glendale has largely remained the same for the past year, I would say. And we're able to take as many as they come because we have the ability to say to the other housing authorities, we're going to bill you and ask them to pay for those vouchers. With that said, other agencies are facing the same shortfall that we are. And so going forward, that trend is going to decline. Sure. Because LA City is not taking any more clients off their waiting list. And similarly, the majority of housing authorities are facing shortfall. So I foresee that trend coming down in the near future until the shortfall issues are addressed.
Thank you, Mr. Agopian, for that. And I think that's an important point to raise and ensure that people hear about this. Obviously, any time anything happens in housing, depending on who the purveyor of the information is, it could spread like wildfire. And, you know, one of the things that comes to mind is a while back there was a number of instances of individuals thinking that they're expediters or people who could possibly help them come off a list or get housing vouchers. And in reality, these were individuals who were engaged in criminal activity, defrauding individuals from thousands of dollars. So if we can convey that message, and I'd like to find out from the department how you're going to push this information out. There's a lot of good information in this report, and I wish that the public knew about it. How are we getting the highlights of it to our various news outlets, whether it's our still print papers or online publications, but also the various smaller community ethnic media outlets.
Chair Kasakian, our plans are available online and on demand that the public can request. As far as the fraud that was mentioned and things of that nature, we do have flyers posted in our office, available at the counter. And every chance we get, such as this public hearing, we try to push that information out, as you said.
All right. Well, I appreciate that, Mr. Agopian and Mr. Zovak and Mr. Galani. And I just want to urge us, I mean, I think flyers are fine, but, you know, that we have a lot of flyers on the counter in the city manager's office, everything on how to live in harmony with the wildlife in our city to programs we have for saving money on utilities. I mean, people will walk by it and not pick it up. I think we need to, as we're going through a checklist of people, when they come to the counter, of things that we're telling them, to again emphasize that do not succumb to any offers of someone offering you help with this for money. That our city staff is here to help. And if we can stress that enough verbally, both at the counter, but also engage on various media outlets. We have, I know, the staff who's available to be able to go out and give interviews in various languages, whatever it may be, Armenian, Tagalog, Spanish, whatever is needed to make sure that the information is out there. That would be my request. I don't have any other questions, and those were more or less my comments. My colleagues have anything else to add? If not, is there anyone who would like to make a motion for the resolution before us? Well, I'll close the public hearing at 2:49 p.m.
I'll move it.
Okay, moved by Mayor Asatryan, and who would like to second it?
Second?
Okay, seconded by Member Najarian. This is for the resolution of adoption and authorizing submission of the Public Housing Authority's 5-year plan. May we have roll call, please?
Authority Member Arginian,
Yes.
Asadrian,
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Garpetian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Barazian,
Yes.
Chair Kasakian.
Yes, and I apologize, I should have checked in with the clerk, but I'm assuming because he didn't stop me, we didn't have cards or callers. So with that, let's move on to authority member or staff comments. All right, seeing as there is none, again, thank you, Mr. Agopian, and there's no new business, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn the Housing Authority.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Member Garpetian, seconded by Member Brotman. We are adjourned at 2:50 p.m. Thank you.